This is Seeking Catharsis, a real victim's chronicles of covert narcissistic abuse. I took a little break from recording. I finally moved away from where I was for the past year, and I spent about a month with some family. My cousin and her husband had some extra space in their home, and they invited me to stay with them just so I wasn't alone as I prepared to go back to my old city where my husband and our business is. And that month was really special for me. It was a time for me to be around people I loved, who understood that I was going through something traumatic, and who just wanted to be there and help me through it. They made me feel loved and heard. And that was really important, because I found that last year alone made me really turn inward. And I got used to being alone and not having someone around to talk to. So I have to admit, the first week or so was a bit odd for me. It was a little exhausting, actually, having to be on for someone in real life. But after a while, I got used to being in the same space with other people, having meals with other people. In fact, I had every meal with someone, which was completely opposite from the past year, where I spent so much time eating alone and not having any company or companionship. So that month was pretty good. I also recognized that there was love, romantic love in the world that still existed. And it was nice to be reminded of that. My cousin and her husband have been together for their entire adult lives. They've been married for about 10 years, and they grew up together pretty much. And what I witnessed between them was pretty magical, especially having gone through what I had gone through. I would hear them talking in their bedroom, talking like they liked each other, laughing. I never heard them fight. Their communication with each other was just very light and positive. Not too positive, but just loving. And there would be times when I would just sit there and listen, and I would be in awe of how easy it was for them to communicate, how much they seemed to like each other, like being around each other, how much they seemed to want to support and encourage each other, and how much they enjoyed each other's companionship. I mean, they had been together for decades, and you could still feel the love and the like between them. But being around that also made my situation seem even worse. It made me realize just how little I was getting from this person that I loved. I saw that I behaved like my cousin and her husband with my husband, but my husband did not respond that way to me. He was withdrawn, and talking to him seemed more like a challenge than something that came natural. The few times I spent with him since the situation happened, I noticed I was making all the effort trying to make basic conversation with him. He always seemed more interested in asking me questions that were probing, kind of investigative, more so trying to figure out what people were saying and thinking and what was I planning on doing and how I was feeling, as if to gauge what his move should be next. He didn't seem to be interested in just having a conversation with me and being in my company, enjoying it, laughing. In fact, I don't think I've heard him laugh with me in about a year. Just with me alone. He does this thing where if we're in the company of others, he finds his laugh. He finds his sense of humor. He throws his head back, closes his eyes, and laughs out loud. But when he's just with me, even if I'm joking or trying to be funny or light, it doesn't really feel like he can find the joy in that. In fact, it feels like he's trying really hard to snuff my joy out, subtly, as if it's not too funny or I'm not funny at all, or what I'm talking about isn't really that interesting. So being with my cousin and her husband was really quite refreshing. It reminded me of what was normal. And it felt so natural to them. And it used to feel natural to me. So it was a nice reminder to be around that. To kind of feel what it felt like to be at ease. To be in a healthy relationship. To be around people who not only said they loved you, but showed that as well. And it was just what I needed. Because I knew that I was going to be returning to a place that had a lot of triggers, a lot of memories, good and bad. And that I was going to be challenged because I was going to be in the company of someone who had harmed me and who could continue and does continue to harm me. I noticed I didn't cry for that month at all. I napped a lot, as if I felt the freedom to finally relax. I explained it to my cousin's husband, whom we're like family. I mean, he's been around the family since we were teenagers. That when I was alone for that time, I did all I could to stay busy so that I didn't have to face my loneliness and my aloneness, which to me are two different things. I didn't want to allow myself to stop and rest, nap. I stayed busy. I worked wasn't even sun up to sundown because I would often be up 3 hours before I needed to be because I was on Pacific time and my business is on the East Coast. But I would just work continuously and I would only take bio breaks to eat, to shower. I would shower before I started work and just short breaks to sit outside and get some sun. But I didn't take naps for some reason. I didn't take the time to stop and just relax. I stayed productive almost to a fault because I think I was afraid that if I stopped and everything was silent around me, that it would make my cruel reality so much more real. Staying busy and staying productive kept me in a zone. It was a distraction from the reality that all I had was work. I didn't have a social life. I didn't have any plans after work like most people. I didn't have anything to look forward to every day. I really just looked forward to the end of my day where I could shut down my computer and get in bed and listen to a podcast or something soothing to help me fall asleep so that I could do it all over again the next day. Once I was in a safe space, in good company, I felt like I could take those naps, that I could stop and say, you know what? I've worked enough. I don't have a meeting for the next 3 hours. Let me take a nap. And that's what I did. And it was great. It was great. I found myself listening to less of my resources that I typically needed every day. That I found my podcast that talked about surviving and getting through abuse and trauma. And those channels that I follow about narcissistic abuse, I listen to those less and less. I read books. And I listened to podcasts about entrepreneurship, which is one of my passions. I felt like I was becoming myself again. And that's part of the reason why I haven't recorded an episode in a while. I wanted to cherish that moment. I wanted to feel more like myself again. And forget that I was experiencing something I wish I hadn't been, but that I was just a normal woman, just working like everyone else and doing things that were enjoyable and practicing gratitude. So that month away in the company of people I loved and liked was really what I needed. And I'm so glad that I had that time, because while I was there, and it was very interesting because the first week I got there, I felt sick. I felt like I was fighting a virus or something. And I realized that it was my body telling me that I was in a place where it was okay for me to be vulnerable, where it was okay for me to feel the pain and the things that I was experiencing. It was okay for me to say, I am exhausted. I am not healthy right now. And I slept that whole weekend and stayed in bed, and I really thought I was ill. But now that I look back at it, I think it was my body just telling me, okay, you're safe to feel. You're safe it's okay for you to not work. It's okay for you to just be in bed. It doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It means that you're doing what you need to do. And so I did that, and it only lasted, I would say, about a little less than a week. And I got soup and meals, and they cared, and they just let me sleep. They didn't make me feel like something was wrong with me. I was depressed. They just co-signed the fact that, hey, you're probably really tired. You probably need to just take care of yourself and just rest, relax. It's the weekend. Don't worry about anything. And that was precisely what I needed.